Hello again. Welcome back. If you were here for episode 1, I am glad you returned. And if this is your first time with me, you are very welcome. My name is Tom, and this is Level Up Talks. In episode 1, we spent a quiet morning together. We woke up slowly. We opened the curtains. We made coffee and sat with a planner and let the morning arrive without rushing it. Today, we are going somewhere. Not far, just around the corner, really. Down 2 streets, past the bookshop with the green door, across the small square where the pigeons gather in the afternoon, and into a place I want to show you. A coffee shop. Not a grand one. Not the kind with chandeliers and marble counters and a menu written in 3 languages. Just a small neighborhood coffee shop. The kind that has been on the same street for 15 years and smells exactly the same every single time you walk through the door. I come here often, more often than I probably should if I am being honest about the amount of coffee a person needs in 1 week. But coffee shops, for me, are not really about coffee. They are about something else, something harder to name. I will try to name it for you today, over the course of this episode, as we sit here together, in the corner by the window, watching the world move past outside. Find a comfortable position, let your body settle, and come with me. The door to the coffee shop is heavier than you expect. That is the first thing I always notice. You push, and there is a moment of resistance, and then it gives, and a bell above the frame rings once, softly, and you are inside. The warmth hits you first, not the aggressive heat of a crowded place, but something gentler, the warmth of a room that has been occupied and lived in all morning. The warmth of a coffee machine that has been running since 6 in the morning. The warmth of people who have been sitting with their hands wrapped around their cups for hours. The door to the coffee shop is heavier than you expect. That is the first thing I always notice. You push, and there is a moment of resistance, and then it gives, and a bell above the frame rings once, softly, and you are inside. The warmth hits you first, not the aggressive heat of a crowded place, but something gentler, the warmth of a room that has been occupied and lived in all morning, the warmth of a coffee machine that has been running since 6 in the morning, the warmth of people who have been sitting with their hands wrapped around their cups for hours. I stand just inside the door for a moment and breathe it in. I always do this. It's a small ritual, a deliberate pause between the outside world and this one, a moment to let the transition happen properly rather than rushing from one atmosphere to the next without acknowledging the change. The coffee shop is not busy today. It's a Wednesday afternoon, the quietest kind of afternoon, the one that belongs to nobody in particular. The morning rush has long finished. The after-school crowd has not yet arrived. The dinner-time people are still hours away. A Wednesday afternoon in a coffee shop is its own kind of peace. I scan the room as I always do when I enter a space, not suspiciously, just with the natural curiosity of someone who finds other people endlessly interesting. There's a woman near the back working on a laptop. She has been here a while, I can tell, because she has that particular stillness of someone who has settled in completely. Her bag is on the floor beside her chair, not on the table as it would be if she had just arrived. Her cup is nearly empty. There's a second cup, also empty, pushed to the edge of the table. She has been here for at least 2 hours. I wonder what she is working on. A report, maybe. Or a novel, or a very long email to someone who doesn't respond quickly enough. All of these possibilities seem equally likely from where I am standing. Near the window, two older men are playing chess. They have a proper board, heavy wooden pieces, and they move them with a slowness that suggests they have been playing together for a very long time. Neither of them speaks. They sit in a comfortable silence that only old friends achieve, the kind of silence that has no awkwardness in it, only familiarity. A young couple at the counter are looking at the menu board together, leaning slightly into each other, pointing at different things and discussing in low voices. And in the corner by the window, my favorite spot, the small round table with two chairs and a view of the street, is empty. I feel the small, disproportionate happiness of finding your preferred place available. It's such a minor thing, a table in a coffee shop, but minor pleasures are the ones that make up most of a life, and I have learned to notice them. I make my way over, I put my bag down, I take off my jacket and hang it on the back of the chair, and I sit. The person who works here on Wednesday afternoons is called Elena. She has worked here for 3 years. I know this because she told me once during a slow afternoon when we had a proper conversation rather than just a transaction. She is from a small city in a country far from here, and she has been in this city for 4 years and found this job in her first month and has been here ever since. She is exceptionally good at her job, not in a performative customer service way, where every interaction has a rehearsed quality, in a genuine way. She remembers what people usually order. She notices when something is wrong with someone without making it strange by mentioning it. She moves behind the counter with an easy efficiency that comes from years of doing something well. She sees me come in and she raises one hand in a small wave. I raise mine back. She appears at my table a few minutes later with her notepad, though she never actually writes anything on it. I think she carries it out of professional habit rather than necessity. She says, "The usual?" The usual. 2 words that carry so much inside them. They mean, I know you, I remember you. You are a regular here, which means you belong here in some small but real way. You have earned your place at this table not through anything dramatic, but simply through repeated presence over time. I say, yes, please. And then, because it is a Wednesday afternoon and I am in no hurry, I ask how she is. She says, tired, honestly, but good tired, not bad tired. I think about that distinction, good tired versus bad tired. It is a real distinction, and she is right to make it. Good tired is the tiredness that comes from doing something meaningful, from working hard at something that matters to you, from being fully present and engaged through a long day. Bad tired is the tiredness that comes from doing nothing of consequence, from being drained by things that do not give anything back. Good tired has a satisfaction in it. Bad tired has only emptiness. I tell her I know exactly what she means. She smiles and goes back to the counter. My usual, in case you are wondering, is a flat white. A flat white is a specific thing. It is espresso with a small amount of steamed milk, less milk than a latte, more than a macchiato. The milk is microphoned, which means it has been steamed to a particular consistency, silky and dense rather than frothy, so that it blends with the espresso rather than sitting on top of it. A flat white done well is a precise thing, a balance. Too much milk and you lose the coffee. Too little and the texture is wrong. The temperature matters too. It should be hot but not scalding, because scalding milk loses something, a natural sweetness that good milk has when it is handled with care. Elena makes the best flat white I have had in this city. I have not told her this directly, but I suspect she knows, because people who do something well can usually tell when others recognize it. While I wait, I look out the window. The window of a coffee shop is one of the finest places in the world to watch people. I mean this seriously. There is something about the position, inside looking out, warm looking at cold, or at rain, or at the indifferent gray of a winter afternoon, that puts you in the perfect relationship with the world passing by. You are connected to it. You can see it clearly, but you are not in it. You have a small voluntary separation from it. It is the same feeling, I think, as reading a very good novel. You are inside another world, following real lives, feeling real things, but you are also safely yourself, in your chair, able to put the book down if it becomes too much. The window of a coffee shop is a book you did not choose. The characters arrive and leave without your input. The plots are unknown. You see only a small section of each story, a few seconds, a few meters of pavement, and then they are gone. And yet you feel, watching from this window, that you have glimpsed something real about each of them. A man in a long gray coat walks past very quickly. His coat is expensive, but his shoes are worn. He is carrying a bag in one hand and his phone in the other, and he is speaking into the phone with an expression that suggests the conversation is not going the way he hoped. He does not look at the coffee shop. He does not look at anything except the middle distance, the particular unfocused gaze of someone who is entirely elsewhere in their mind, while their body moves through the world on automatic. I wonder where he is going. I wonder what the conversation is about. I wonder if he will remember this afternoon, this particular walk along this particular street, or if it will dissolve the way most afternoons dissolve, into the undifferentiated past that we carry without being able to find anything specific inside it. A young girl walks past holding her mother's hand and eating something, a biscuit or a piece of bread, with the total unself-conscious absorption of a small child eating something she likes. She is wearing a red coat and yellow boots, and she looks at everything as she passes: the window of the coffee shop, the crack in the pavement, a puddle, a dog tied to a post outside the shop 2 doors down, who watches her with enormous interest as she passes. She stops to look at the dog. Her mother gently tugs her hand. She looks at the dog for one more second, then she allows herself to be walked on, still watching the dog over her shoulder until they turn the corner and are gone. I feel very fond of that child suddenly, and I have never met her and will never see her again. A cyclist comes fast from the wrong direction and narrowly avoids a man stepping off the curb. Both of them make the same gesture at exactly the same time, a hand raised, a word said. Neither of them slows down. They continue in their separate directions as if the near collision was simply part of the rhythm of the street, which I suppose it is. The street absorbs everything. It absorbs the argument and the love affair and the business deal and the grief and the celebration and the daily unremarkable transit of thousands of lives. It absorbs all of it without comment and offers it back as simply the street on a Wednesday afternoon in a city, in a world. Elena sets my flat white down in front of me. I had not heard her approach, which is one of her skills. "Thank you," I say. She nods and leaves, and I wrap both hands around the cup and look at what she has made. On the surface of the milk she has made a small leaf shape. A rosetta, it is called in the language of coffee. A pattern created by the movement of the milk as it is poured. Small baristas spend months learning to make them consistently. Elena makes them without apparent effort, because she has done it so many thousands of times that it has become automatic, muscle memory in the most precise and delicate form. I look at the rosetta for a moment before I drink it. It seems a shame to destroy something someone made with care, but that is also the nature of most beautiful things. They are temporary. You look, you appreciate, and then you participate in their ending. I take the first sip. Oh, there it is. That is the one. I want to talk to you about language for a moment. Specifically, the language of places like this one. Every place has its own language, not in a different way that French is different from Spanish, but a vocabulary that belongs to it. Words and phrases that you only really hear and use in a specific context, and that carry the texture of that context inside them. The coffee shop has a rich vocabulary, and knowing it is not just practically useful, though it is that. It gives you access to the culture of the place. It makes you a participant rather than a visitor. Let me tell you some of the words I love in this vocabulary. To linger. This is my favorite coffee shop word. To linger means to stay somewhere longer than you strictly need to, not because you are waiting for something, but because the place itself gives you something worth staying for. To linger is a small act of freedom, a refusal to be hurried, a declaration that this moment, in this chair, with this cup, is valuable enough to extend deliberately. Good coffee shops are made for lingering. The chairs are comfortable enough. The music, if there is any, is quiet enough not to demand attention. The lighting, especially in the afternoon, has a warmth that makes everything feel slightly more settled than it actually is. I am lingering right now. I do it unashamedly. To nurse a drink. To nurse something means to consume it very slowly, making it last much longer than would seem reasonable. You nurse a drink when you are in no hurry and you want to stay. When the drink is the excuse for the sitting, not the reason. I nurse my flat white over the course of an hour sometimes, taking small sips at irregular intervals, letting it cool to the temperature I like, which is warmer than most people would want, but not as hot as it arrived. There is no judgment in a good coffee shop for nursing a drink. The staff know what you are doing, and they understand it, because they are part of the same culture, the culture of the place that invites you to stay. The ambient sound. The ambient sound of a coffee shop is something I think about more than is probably normal. It is made of many layers. The machine, always, the deep, pressured sound of espresso being extracted, and the high, sustained note of milk being steamed. The click and clatter of cups on saucers. Conversation, but conversation as texture rather than content. You hear the sound of talking without hearing the words, which is oddly pleasant, like rain. Then music underneath all of it. In this coffee shop, the music is always jazz, not the difficult, avant-garde kind that challenges you. The warm, melodic kind that you could almost whistle along to if you were paying more attention. It moves through the room like a friendly presence, never demanding to be noticed, just there, making everything slightly more than it would otherwise be. And underneath all of those sounds, underneath the machine and the conversation and the music, there is a sound that is harder to describe, a kind of collective hum. The vibration of a room full of people all engaged in their own private worlds while sharing a physical space. It's one of my favorite sounds in the world. I read somewhere that this kind of ambient sound, the coffee shop sound, is actually one of the most conducive environments for creative thinking. The right level of noise, not too quiet and not too loud, seems to open something in the mind, to make certain kinds of thinking easier. I believe this. My best ideas have often arrived in places like this one. I want to tell you about someone I saw in this coffee shop once. About 6 months ago. I was sitting in this same chair, at this same table, on a similarly quiet afternoon, when an old man came in. He was very old, the kind of old that is impossible to estimate precisely, 80, perhaps more. He moved slowly and carefully, with the deliberate economy of someone who has learned over many years not to waste movement or effort. Each step was considered. He was wearing a suit, not a casual suit, not a modern one, a proper, formal, old-fashioned suit in a dark charcoal gray, with a white shirt and a deep, quiet burgundy. His shoes were polished, not new, but polished, which is a different and more important thing. They were shoes that had been looked after. He sat down at the table next to mine, the one between me and the two chess players who were there that day too, as they are most days. He ordered tea. He ordered it with a precision and politeness that felt from another era. He said, "I would like a pot of English breakfast tea, please, with the milk on the side, not already in the cup, if that is possible." It was possible. Elena brought him a small white pot and a small white jug, and he thanked her as if she had done him a genuine kindness. He poured his tea with a steadiness that seemed to require concentration. His hands were not perfectly steady, the way old hands often are not, but he compensated for this with patience and care, and he did not spill a drop. He sat with his tea, and he looked at the window. Not in the way I look at the window, with active curiosity, looking at each person and wondering about them, in a quieter way, with the gaze of someone who is not exactly watching, but simply allowing the world to pass before them, like water moving past a stone. After a while he turned and caught me looking at him. I had been looking, I realize, for longer than was polite, but he did not seem to mind. He gave me a small nod, the kind of nod that acknowledges a fellow human being without demanding anything further. I nodded back. And then, after a pause, he said, "Good afternoon." I said, "Good afternoon." And then he said, "I used to come here with my wife. She liked the almond croissants. I never much cared for them myself, but I always ordered one for her." He paused. "She died 2 years ago." I did not know what to say to that. There is never quite the right thing to say to that. I said, "I am sorry." He said, "Thank you." Then he turned back to the window. He finished his tea. He put his coat back on with the same slow care with which he had taken it off. He left a generous tip on the table, laid it down with deliberateness, not dropped. He stood, picked up his hat, which I had not noticed until that moment, and he said to me and to no one, "Same time next week, I think." And then he left. I thought about him for a long time after that afternoon. I still think about him now. About what it means to return to a place that holds the memory of someone you loved, whether it is painful or comforting, or both at once. Whether the almond croissant is still on the menu, and whether he looks at it when he sits down, and whether looking at it gives him something or takes something. I told you at the beginning that I would try to name what coffee shops are really for, what they give you that is not coffee. I have been thinking about it as I have been sitting here, as the afternoon has moved past the window, as my cup has gone from full to half to nearly empty. And I think the answer is this: permission. A coffee shop gives you permission to be in public without performing, without producing, without justifying your presence through achievement or purpose or busyness. You are allowed to sit here and do nothing in particular. You are allowed to look out of the window for 20 minutes. You are allowed to think a thought all the way to its end, without interruption, without the feeling that you should be doing something more useful instead. In most of modern life, there is a pressure to account for your time, to be able to say what you did with it and why it mattered. Productivity has become a kind of morality. The busy person is the good person. The resting person has some explaining to do. A coffee shop is one of the last places where lingering is not just tolerated but actually built into the architecture. The chairs are designed for staying. The cups are sized for nursing. The ambient sound is calibrated, whether intentionally or not, for the kind of gentle, unfocused thinking that does not have an output. The coffee shop says, "You can be here, just present. That is enough." I think this is why people who work from coffee shops are often more creative than people who work from offices, and why people who are going through something difficult often find themselves drawn to them. The coffee shop is not trying to extract anything from you. It does not need you to be more than you are today. That is a rare and generous thing for a place to offer. I look at my cup. It is almost empty now. The woman with the laptop is still there, though she has ordered a third cup. The chess players have finished their game and are setting the pieces up again for another. The young couple from earlier have left, replaced at the counter by two women who are looking at the cake display with the serious attention it deserves. The light from the window has changed. The afternoon is getting older. There is a quality to late afternoon light that is different from midday or morning, softer and more golden, the kind of light that makes everything look slightly more beautiful than it might in another kind of light, as if the day is making a final generous effort before evening. I find that I am reluctant to leave. That is a good sign. It means the afternoon has given me something. Not something I can necessarily name or put in a list, but something real. The old man in the suit, the girl in the red coat and yellow boots, the rosetta that Elena made in the milk of my coffee, the ambient sound like rain. The particular, unrepeatable quality of a Wednesday afternoon in a small coffee shop where I am known well enough to be greeted with the word usual. Before we leave, I want to leave some words with you, not as a list to memorize, just as small gifts, words and phrases from this afternoon that I hope settle into you gently, the way good things do when you are not forcing them. To linger, to stay somewhere longer than necessary because the place gives you something worth staying for. The opposite of rushing, the choice to extend a moment that is working. To nurse a drink, to consume it slowly, making it last. To use the drink as the excuse for the sitting, not the reason. Ambient sound, the background sound of a place. Not the sound you focus on, but the sound that surrounds you. The texture of a room given to you in audio form. Disproportionate happiness, a happiness that is larger than the situation seems to deserve. The joy of finding your favorite table free, the pleasure of the first sip, small things that feel, in the moment, like gifts. To account for your time, to explain what you did and why it was useful. The modern pressure to justify your hours, the thing a coffee shop briefly releases you from. Unrepeatable, something that will not happen in exactly this way again. Every afternoon in a coffee shop is unrepeatable. The same chairs, the same smell, the same machine, but different light, different people, different thoughts in your head. Unrepeatable. And one more, the one the old man gave me without knowing it. Same time next week, I think? A commitment with an honest uncertainty attached. The I think that says, I cannot be sure of the future, but I am pointing myself towards it with hope. That small phrase, spoken quietly at the end of a quiet afternoon, contains something true and human and worth carrying. I finish the last of my coffee. I put on my jacket. I pick up my bag. I stop at the counter on my way out to thank Elena. She is making something for the two women who are still studying the cake display with great seriousness. She looks up and gives me a small smile. "See you next time," she says. "See you next time." The door is still heavy on the way out. That resistance, and then the give, and the bell ringing once above my head, and then the outside. The air is cooler than when I arrived. The afternoon has moved while I was sitting, and the light is different now, lower and more golden, and the street has different people on it, the later people, the ones with shopping bags and children, and the particular energy of people heading somewhere rather than coming from somewhere. I stand on the pavement for a moment, and I feel what I usually feel when I leave a coffee shop after a long afternoon. Something between satisfied and reluctant, as if I have eaten a very good meal, and the meal is over, and the meal was worth it, and I am glad I went, and also I wish there were a little more. I turn toward home. The bookshop with the green door. The small square where the pigeons have settled for the evening. 2 streets and the door of my building, and the particular quiet of the stairs on the way up. Thank you for spending this afternoon with me. I hope it gave you something. A word, perhaps, a small image. The old man in the suit who comes back to the place where his wife loved the almond croissants. The girl in the red coat looking over her shoulder at the dog as she is walked around the corner. The permission to linger. The flat white with the rosetta that Elena made without thinking about it, because she has done it so many times that her hands know where to go. Wherever you are as you listen to this, I hope you are somewhere comfortable. I hope you are warm. I hope the afternoon, or the evening, or the morning, wherever you are in your particular day, is treating you gently. Episode 3 is coming. We will go somewhere else together, somewhere new. Until then, take care of yourself. Nurse your drinks. Linger when you can. Notice the unrepeatable things. I am Tom. This is Level Up Talks. Same time next week, I think.